Hey everyone, Andrea Walford here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this butterfly thank you card featuring Stampin' Up's Butterfly Thinlits and using a gradient sponging technique.
So I have here a 4 by 5¼ inch piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I have it secured to my grid paper using some Dotto adhesive, which is a temporary removable adhesive. I'm using some Post-it note paper to mask off a 1/2 inch border all around the edge of my card. Now it's a little bit tricky because once I have the two sides masked, to mask the top and bottom, it's kind of hard to see where the 1/2 inch mark is. I can't use my grid lines as a guide anymore. So for that, I'm going to take an acrylic graph ruler and I'm going to mark off 1/2 inch, then align this edge with the 1/2 inch mark like so. Once it's aligned, I can go ahead and remove my ruler. And then just to keep my paper from shifting, I'm going to take, because it only has the adhesive on the one edge, I'm using some painter's tape to hold it down. So now I'm going to start with some crushed curry, classic ink, and I have here a wedge of stamping sponge. I'm going to pounce my sponge on the crushed curry classic ink, then I'm going to start at the top and start sponging downwards. And I'm trying to create as smooth of a sponged area as I can, but of course when you're working with stamping sponges, it's never going to be quite as smooth as if you're working with a brayer. And you do want to make sure that you are gentle around the edges of the mask so that you don't end up accidentally pulling up the edges and then getting the color underneath. So as you get to the edge, it does help to keep your fingers like this. So now that I have that color, I'm going to come in with some of my pumpkin pie. And here I'm starting to the left and bringing my color across. And I want it to blend a little bit on top of the crushed curry. So I don't want it to look like there's a straight edge. So you can see I'm coming in, I'm blending from the left and the right. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of my melon mambo and I'm going to start bringing it up from the bottom, kind of from the corner as well, and bringing it up so that it does blend into the pumpkin pie. And I'm getting a little bit of my fluff from my sponge getting caught underneath, so I do want to make sure that I remove that. And then you can go in, and once you have the pink, you can overlap with a little bit more of the pumpkin pie, and then you can go back if you need to deepen the color of the crushed curry. Now if these colors are too vibrant for you, you most certainly can use much softer colors. I just really happen to love working with vibrant colors. These are totally, my color palette. So by all means, work with a color palette that suits you. Okay, that's probably dark enough. So I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to close my ink pads here so that they don't dry, and then I'm going to remove my mask, and then I'll be back. So here you can see what this piece looks like. So I'm going to set this aside for just a moment, and we're going to die cut a butterfly. So I'm using this medium-sized butterfly from the Framelits Butterflies. I'm going to die cut it out of black cardstock. So just to help it pop out of the die easier, I'm going to sandwich a piece of wax paper in between. So you can see here I have my cardstock, my wax paper, and then my butterfly die. And I'm going to take this and run it through my Big Shot. So I'm back from my Big Shot, and you can see here this just popped right out of my die, and then you peel off the wax paper butterfly and you have got your die. So now I'm just going to put my cardstock piece back onto my grid paper. Then I want to put my die here as reference, and I want to stamp the thank you sentiment from the Another Thank You stamp set. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink up my stamp in black ink and stamp. There you can see how that looks. So I'm just going to give that a moment to dry. So I centered and stuck my panel onto my card front using some Stampin' dimensionals, and I used 9 in all. Now this card is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card created out of a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of cardstock scored at 5 1/2 inches. Now I've also cut up some Stampin' dimensionals and placed little strips of them on the back of my butterfly, and now what I'm going to do, remove the backing, I'm simply going to stick this onto my card on an angle like so. And then the very last step I think that I'm going to do is embellish with a few rhinestones. So I'm just going to take a look. I'm going to place some on here, see if I like it, and then I'll be back to show you what it looks like. So you can see here I've added a scattering of rhinestones going up kind of through the center of the butterfly. So there you can see what our card looks like, and it's now finished.